Why the silence? It's not an exam, right? So how do you create your own passwords? Anyone of you? How do you create a memorable password that you can remember at least? Huh? Use a phrase. Okay, use a phrase. So she uses a phrase, and like I said, each one has his or her own technique. So let's say I start with something like this. Start with a sentence that you remember, right? So in this case, I use this. Nalini was born on 2nd of October. So this is a sentence. So you may want to use this directly if you want. Right? It doesn't hurt. Use the same, use this sentence itself as a passphrase. Or if it cannot be done, this is one technique that you can do. Take the first letters of each word and you make a password about that. Right? So you can see that Gandhiji was born on 2 and then October. Right? So you could leave it at O or you could leave it as OCT. It depends on what you want. As long as you can remember it, this is the sentence that I took and this is the transformation that I did to the sentence. Right? So that's enough. So you can also add various kinds of complexities. Have combinations of uppercase and lowercase letters. Have what is called leet speak. Do you know what a leet speak is? Leet? Okay. So instead of using symbols, we try and use numbers. Or instead of using numbers, we use letters and so on. Right? So how many of you type great as GR8? See? So this is leet speak. Right? But this is a common knowledge. GR8 is great. This is common knowledge. This is, you may actually construct something on your own, which is this leet speak, and you could use this. So for example, if you notice the last one bullet, it's GWP, and instead of letter O, it has digit 0. Right? So you can do similar things. Substitute 1 for L and L for 1, and so on. So these are things that you could do. And always check your password strength against websites. There are various websites that actually give you the strength of the password. So there is a snapshot here at the bottom, for which I type this GWB02 of OCT, and it tells me how safe the password is. So many websites nowadays have these things. Right? As you type, it tells you how strong the password is or how weak the password is. Use those features, don't ignore them. So here what it shows is, it says that, so for the first few 2 or 3 characters, it will probably show up in red. And as I type one more thing, it shows me strong now. Whatever I type so far is still not the strongest. It could be stronger. So there are 4 bars, there are only 3 bars of freedom. So use these things judiciously. So the recommendations that various people give you, websites give you, use them. Even if you create a password for something else, not for the online, let's say I took this from Microsoft, I don't have to use it in Hotmail, I could use it anywhere else also. But go and use this, find out how strong your password is, and use that for your various systems. So the first thing is about how safe a password is, the first part. Right? You can guess passwords, you can do brute force attacks, you can guess what the passwords are, or snoop around and find out where the passwords are. So in that sense, it's good for us to keep some memorable passwords, at the same time, have it simple enough. Right? So have complex enough. So the other thing is about the files on a computer. Right? So one is having a password for the system itself. The second thing is about files. So if I have protected my computer against logging in, then what could go wrong? There are also so many other issues that I didn't talk about. For example, having BIOS password set up is also useful. Right? So how many of you have BIOS password set up on your computers? Very few of you. You have access to your, you have access control on your Windows systems or Linux systems, but not BIOS. Right? Because BIOS can make it really unusable. Every time you reboot, you have to type the password and then boot and so on. But if it's a computer in which there is some safe data stored, secure data stored, sensitive data stored, you need to protect it in various forms, not just in having something at the operating system level. So let's look at files on a computer itself. So now that I have protected my computer, the files must be safe. This is one thought that some of us may have. Password access is there, thereby the files are safe. Right? So sadly, this is not true also. Files do have permissions, and your files are as safe as the permissions that they have. So this is something that you might have realized in your Unix systems already. Right? The notion of permission of files. Right? So I have a computer in which multiple users have access, and I create a password for myself which is strong and secure. Nobody can guess this. But if somebody else has an account on the same machine, they get access to the computer that I am on. I have very weak protection for my files. They could get access to my files. Right? So privileged levels like users, power users, admins, guests, and so on, these are there to essentially prevent access to such things. But despite of all this, you may still have something that is being shared without even you knowing, because you didn't lock the permissions of files carefully. Essentially, loose permissions to files mean they get easier access. So, if password is not known, files cannot be accessed. That's again a myth. Okay? You don't have to know the password on a computer to actually get access to the files. There are various other ways in which you can get access to files without ever logging in. Have you tried this? No? How many of you have dual boot systems? Linux and Windows? Okay. Do you access Windows systems from the Linux side? Yes. Do you really use the Windows password when you access the files in the Linux side? No. Right? So there is a case right there. Right? Even in your own machine, you're not actually protecting your files, because you have a different operating system. I can come from a different operating system, get access to my files in Windows. You're not using Windows password to get access. Right? So only when you log in through Windows, you need a password. You don't have to do that always. Right? So this is something that's always there. So somebody who's going to steal stuff from your files and so on, they're not going to play by the rules. Right? So if I'm going to be a thief, why should I go by the laws and rules and regulations to steal stuff from you? I'll try and do it in as many ingenious ways as I can. Right? So this is the key thing that you have to be looking at. What are the different ingenious ways in which a thief can access my data? And a policeman who's going to prevent these things should be at least as smart as the thief is himself or herself. Right? So the thieves generally know what kind of things policemen do, and policemen should also generally know what thieves do. Right? And each one should get better with time. The other key is that if I change the extension of the file, then it will go unnoticed. Right? So I have a file, and I don't want somebody else to see that file. So I have a spreadsheet sitting in my computer with some sensitive data, and it has XLS, and if people search for XLS, it will turn up. So I don't want to keep it as XLS. I'll keep it with some other extension, only that I know. Right? So we assume that this is something that can protect data, because in Windows many times when we change the file's extension, the application for that will try to open it up. Right? By changing that to something that you have created, no application will open it. We assume that it's safe. Then the other thing is, I have deleted the files, that way they cannot be accessed. I have this file, but I have deleted it, so people cannot access it anymore. Even if they get access to my login, they cannot get access to file. So there are various ways in which I can get access to files on a system. One thing I talked about is having a dual boot system. So through one setup, you can access files on the other setup. So this is at least assuming that you have dual boot system. So let's say I have only a Windows PC, and there are no Linux installations on that. So then you need either access to install an operating system and start using it, which is probably unlikely. But one thing that I can always do is bring a bootable CD, boot my machine up, boot your machine up, and get access to data from there. Right? So all these live CDs are a blessing and also a bane at the same time. Right? It's a blessing because you don't have to carry an operating system with you and install it and so on. At the same time, you can boot off any system and get things from there. So one thing that I can always do is bring a Linux live CD and boot up my machine, get access to the files, leave without any text. Right? You may not even know that the computer was booted, because if I boot in Windows, you will see a log somewhere that it was booted. I boot in another operating system, it's not going to touch your file system. You may not even know that the computer was turned on. Right? And the same thing about file extensions. Changing the extensions do not really help, because files do have a signature of a certain kind. And that's what applications use. They go and read the signature in the files. So there's usually something called a magic number written with various files. And this magic number is actually some kind of an agreed upon thing. PDF files will have this magic number, PS files will have this magic number, XLS files will have this magic number, and so on. So this is what many applications use internally anyway. So if the magic number is known, let's say I get a byte by byte read access to your file, I can find out where the magic number is and get the file type rather than relying on just the extension. Right? I don't need to really use the extension. I can go and inspect the file directly and get access to the files. There are also plenty of utilities already out there to find out the types of files and so on. Do you know anything like that?